Hello my beautiful friends and welcome back. I hope you're all keeping well. So we are now in the month of June, which means one thing and one thing only. It is Pride Month! I thought it would be nice to sit down and film a answering your bisexuality questions since we are in the month of Pride. I'd love for you guys to let me know down below if you've ever attended a Pride parade, because I personally never have, and that is for one reason and one reason only, and it's because my anxiety is so bad with crowds, with big crowds. Like, I can't do it and it would be doing more harm for me than good for me. So I always try to celebrate in other ways which aren't so harmful for me and my mental health. But I'm so excited this year because this video is in collaboration with Lelo. And if you don't know of the brand Lelo, it's basically the vibrator, my favourite vibrator I showed you guys in my last sex Q&A video, and all you guys were dying over it and so, oh my god, I can't. Their sex toys are like... But anyways, they reached out and want to work with me, and I'm so excited because I've been using their toys for years. Like, come on, let's keep it real here, girls. But this year, Lelo are actually holding a virtual Pride parade, which is right up my street because I can attend the virtual Pride parade and still take care of me and my anxiety and my mental health, but we can still all come together. Like, I loved this brand beforehand and I love this brand even more now. Like, I think it's so amazing that Lelo are doing this for everyone in the LGBTQ plus community, because, you know, the whole pandemic has affected the way we normally celebrate and come together as a whole community. Even if we're alone, Lelo believes that none of us should be lonely, and I'm so happy that they're doing this for us all. I think it's really heartwarming. So please click the link in my description box to come and take part in Lelo's virtual Pride, and we can share our stories and all celebrate together and come together as a community. But yes, thank you so much, Lelo, for collaborating with me on today's video. I love you guys. You guys do the best sex toys ever, and they support the LGBTQ plus community. Can we just take a moment? Can we just give them a round of applause? Anywho, the first question I'm going to be answering is, what did you learn while discovering your sexuality? So for those of you who might not be aware or maybe are new here, I am bisexual. So I learned so much. I was thinking about this and I was like, I could film a whole video on this in itself, and maybe I will do that, but I'm just going to run through two things that I learned while discovering my sexuality, which I feel like are very important to share. The first thing I learned is that the confusion doesn't last forever. When I was discovering my sexuality, it kind of felt like I was in a bit of a hell because it was just consuming my every thought, and I didn't know who I was, and I had nobody to talk to, and there was nobody where I grew up who was in the LGBTQ plus community or out as in that community. So I felt very alone and very isolated and very stuck. But it doesn't last forever, and one day you will figure out who you are, and one day you're going to be so accepting and so happy of who you are. So enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. It is going to be a process, and it can take a bit or a lot of time for you to figure out who you truly and really are deep down inside, but that's okay. The second thing I learned while discovering my sexuality is that not everyone in your life is going to understand and or accept you and your sexuality, but that is okay. That does not matter. As long as you accept yourself and you know who you are, and the people closest to you know and accept you, that is all that matters. I'm a very sensitive person. There's quite a few people in my life who cannot understand why I'm so sensitive. But that doesn't matter because it's just a small part of who I am. It doesn't define me as a person. It's just a little part of what makes me a whole human being. So at the end of the day, does it really matter? No. And I wish that's something that I could have come to terms with a lot sooner, because I feel like for years I was kind of bottling a lot up inside because I knew how certain people in my life would react and would feel, and I wish I would have done things for me sooner rather than later and stopped caring what other people would have thought or think, because it's irrelevant. It really is irrelevant. Like, life is too short to not be doing what makes you happy. I think I will do a whole video on that topic because I have a lot to say, but we're going to move on to the next question. So the next one is, what advice would you give to your younger queer self? I love this question because when I was going through the process of trying to figure out my sexuality and who I was and what I was, and I was so confused for years, I wish there was more content like this on the internet, because when I was going through that, nobody spoke openly about this kind of stuff online. I know nowadays it is very openly discussed and stuff, which is so amazing. Well, a lot more openly than when I was going through the kind of confusion discovery process. But the advice I would give to my younger self, again, I have so many things I could say, but I'm trying to cut it down. So the first thing is that you are not crazy. Jessica, baby Jessica, you're not crazy. Would you believe it? You're actually fully mentally well. Okay, maybe that's pushing it a little bit too far, but you're not insane, honey, you're not. I feel like I always knew once I got to like a certain age where I kind of had an understanding, or a bit more of an understanding of myself. Like when I was a young teenager, I kind of knew I wasn't like everyone else. I always had the urge to kiss girls. I was always looking at girls, not jealousy, but like wow, I want to be with you, not I want to be you. I want to like kiss you and touch you and hold your hand and just like be in your presence. Like I was very different to the girls I was around and the girls I was friends with. It was always very different to my friends like kissing a girl on a night out when they were drunk or stuff like that. Like I never felt that way. And it freaked me out because, as I said, nobody who I knew was openly out as anything other than straight. And I grew up in a Catholic school and everybody was pretty much as straight as a pole, or they appeared to be. I don't know if they are now. I felt crazy. I felt insane. I felt very alone, and I felt like there was something really wrong with me because I knew I wasn't like the people and the girls around me. I knew that I was different. What I wish I could tell my younger Chris self is that the process of discovering your sexuality is a scary one, but it does get better and it will get better. And one day it's not going to consume your every thought, and it's not going to be something that you go to bed crying your eyes out over anymore because you can't figure yourself out. It will be okay. The second thing I wish I could tell my younger Chris self is that it's okay to not know which gender you're more attracted to. Unfortunately, people tend to ask this question a lot, and really at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Like once you understand that sexuality is fluid and is changing and can change at any given time, like that's all that matters. Once you know, and once you know how you feel, if you know you're attracted to 2 or more genders, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. I felt like for years I was trying to nearly prove to people, because I felt like people were like, well, like how much do you really like girls? Like what percentage do you like girls? And now I'm like, why did I feel like I had to prove to anybody that I was also attracted and into girls? Like that's nobody's bloody business. It's not. It's a dumb question. Sexuality is fluid, and I remember coming to the realization where I was like, if people are going to question me and how I'm telling them I am as a person and how I feel inside, because nobody knows how I feel inside, only me. You've got no idea. I don't want you in my life. And I cut a lot of people out of my life over the last number of years for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of them were quite ignorant, could we say. The next question, and the most asked question, is how did you realise you were bisexual? And most of you guys asked this question, and I have addressed this before, but it was a couple of years ago, so I am going to quickly tell you guys the story again. So first of all, let's go back to my childhood, because that was another question. One of you guys asked me, what were some childhood signs you were bisexual that you didn't realise until coming out? So I feel like it goes back to me being very young. When I was like 5 or 6, I want to say, I had an experience with a close friend of mine where like we were sleeping in the same bed and we took all our clothes off and we were like touching each other, and you know, we were kind of whatever, but we were very young. And that's not, I know kids like mess around and can kind of do stuff like that, but typically you don't normally hear straight girls saying that they had experiences like that. And I had a couple of experiences like that with some friends when I was younger. I also remember being maybe like 8 or 9, and I had a friend and we were playing like mom and dads, and like we had like little baby dolls, and we'd put the baby to bed and then we'd like turn the lights off and we'd be like, oh, like let's have sex because that's what mom and dads do. I don't think straight girls again would have been doing stuff like that at 8 or 9. And I always had crushes on girls from a very young age. So I was always like more so drawn to women rather than men, like whether it be in movies or TV shows I used to watch. Like I'd always be admiring the women, never really the men. Like I'd always notice an attractive woman, and again, it was never in a case of I'm jealous of you. It was just like wow. It's like if you are appreciating a good-looking man, you know, you're not thinking I want to be him. Like, you know, you're not like I want to be him. You're just like, wow, like I can really appreciate him for all he is. I was like that with women. And as I started getting older then, it started to be even more so. Like, I'd always notice women a lot more than I'd notice men. But I knew I liked men. So it was really confusing. Like, I remember thinking, oh, I'm just jealous of them. Like, I just want to have her this or have her that. Like, I kept trying to, like, push it back in my brain as nothing because it was never spoken about. I never knew anyone who was gay or in the LGBTQ plus community. It was never spoken about in my school. My school didn't feel like a place where it was a safe space for that. I grew up in a very small town, so it was like everyone knew each other's business kind of thing, and everyone was very close-minded. Like, there was very few open-minded people in the town I grew up in, so I really struggled with that. And again, it was Catholic school, so it was a very hard environment for me to try and come to terms with who I was. And then when I became a young teenager and I started, like, you know, masturbating and just like kind of exploring myself, I remember I would always think of girls. Like, girls would always be what would like get me aroused or like get me kind of all flustered and whatnot. And then I remember having this friend, and I was friends with this girl. I don't want to go into too much detail because if people who know me are watching this, they're going to know who I'm talking about. I was friends with this girl for a very long time. We were best friends. And this would have been from when I was in primary school, so maybe like 11 up until a few years later. And we were very, very close. And I remember having some feelings for her, but they weren't like friendship feelings. They were like romantic feelings. And obviously she had no idea. I never expressed it. But it was something that I knew myself, and I just always wanted to spend time with her. And, you know, I used to be jealous when she'd be talking to a guy, or if she'd be telling me about some guy she liked. And so I kind of had a lot of experiences from as young as I can remember with girls. Like, even when I was a child, I didn't care for Ken, the Ken doll. I had my Barbies. My Barbies would be in a relationship, like two women. They'd be having sex. They'd be like all over each other. They'd have a baby together. Like, I did not care for Ken. I didn't want Ken in the picture. So literally, from me being a literal fetus, my brain was doing some things. Then when I was 15, I got into my first relationship with a boy, and I was with him for 2.5 years. And, you know, I was always very confused because I knew I liked boys. Like, I knew I liked boys. And because I knew I liked boys, I was like, okay, it's easier to just push this out of my head because I'll be accepted if I'm straight. And it's easier if I'm straight because nobody's going to question me if I'm with a boy. And so that's what I did. And once me and him broke up, I remember I was like, okay, I still can't get girls out of my mind. I kissed a few girls, and then I ended up sleeping with a couple of girls. And after the first time I slept with a girl, I was like, okay, this is everything I need to know. I remember thinking to myself, because I was still so confused at this point and I wasn't certain, even though I knew I was, but I was like in denial. I was like, you will know. If you have sex and you sleep with a girl, you will know for sure. And the first time I ever slept with a girl, I literally remember the next day I was like bawling, crying, because I was like, I'm not straight. I was like, I am not straight. And I was scared and I was upset because I knew for certain then, and it was going to be a lot harder than me just being fully straight per se. So I knew because it felt amazing. Like, to me, it just felt so right, and it was like, oh wow, this is what everything's been about these last number of years. Like, it just felt so connecting and so like together. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just knew in that moment, I was like, everything makes sense now. And after that, I remember being like, am I gay? Am I gay? Oh my god, does this mean I'm gay? Because bisexual wasn't a term that I really heard much of. So in my head, I was like, right, I either have to be straight or I have to be gay. But I was like, but I like boys, but I also like girls, and I really like both of them, and I've had sex with both, and I really enjoy both. And I was just like, oh my god, why me? Like, why me? I remember doing a lot of my own research and trying to come across anything online that I could relate to, and I remember coming across a few things that I did relate to, and then I was like, bisexual. I was like, I can resonate and relate with that so much. And I remember that day, like, it just all made so much sense to me. I was scared and I was emotional and I was happy and I was sad, and I was just like, oh, that is kind of how I realised I was bisexual. There was always something there my whole life, but I feel like it was only once I first slept with a woman that I knew for certain that I was, because before that I just kept being like, are you just curious, like, you know, like back to the like, are you just jealous? But it was never any of that, and it was just me in denial. So yeah, that was when I fully realised and fully accepted, more importantly, in myself. I feel like I'm gonna cry because, like, oh my god, it was just like, I went through such hell in my brain for years, and like there was no one I could speak to about it. Me and my sister weren't close, by the way. We only became close when I was like 18, so if any of you guys are wondering, why didn't you talk to your sister? So yeah, it was so difficult, and I just want to say that, like, if you're in the confusion stage or you don't know, it's okay, and one day you will be, you know, sitting down, telling your story, knowing exactly who you are. I was in a battle in my brain for most of my life. Like, that was like when I was like maybe 17 was when I fully accepted it, or I realised for certain, and I'm 22 now. But yeah, you know, and I feel like it has a lot to do with how you grow up and the people that are around your background, and that's what made it a lot more difficult for me, because I'm Irish as well, and in Ireland it's very like traditional, and you know, the dad goes out to work and the mother stays at home to raise the kids, and oh my god. Okay, moving on. I love how I was like, I'm going to tell this story really quickly. In like 20 minutes I was there chatting, yattering away. The next question is, can someone know for sure their sexuality without having been with anyone / different genders? Okay, this is so important, right? I'm getting so worked up here, sister. Oh! This bugs me so much, okay? So I personally didn't kind of come out to anybody or accept myself that I was bisexual until I'd slept with a woman, but that was only because it was nothing to do with anyone else. It was because for me that was my way of knowing for sure inside, because I knew that in that moment and during that experience I would be able to tell a lot by how I felt and etc. I often hear people being like, well, how can you be gay if you've never been with a woman? Or how can you be bisexual if you've never been with a woman, or vice versa, or whatever gender? And it's just like, but how come when everybody comes into the world, everyone just automatically assumes they're straight? Even if somebody has never been with someone of the opposite sex, you're still assumed straight. So how come it's okay for people to know they're straight without ever having been with the opposite sex, but it's not okay for people to know for sure that they're gay or bi or pan or whatever it might be without having been with whatever said sex? Like, it does not make sense. Double standards or what? I'm sorry, that actually infuriates me so much. Like, yes, I feel like you can know your sexuality without having been with said gender, because only you know who you are and the thoughts you have and the feelings you have and the emotions you have. Like, I remember being so young and having such romantic feelings for a friend of mine who was a girl. And had this stuff maybe been talked to me in school and been said to me, maybe from a very young age I would have known and I would have accepted that I was also attracted to women. But because it was never said and I was always just like, everyone's straight. It's just assume everyone's straight because that's what you're supposed to do. I personally think you can know your sexuality without having been with anyone / different genders. And if somebody says anything, I would give them that exact statement. I would say, well, how come it's okay for somebody who's never been with the opposite gender to be like, know that they're straight? Like, you know, when I was younger and girls would be like, oh, boys, 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 no one would question them. But they'd never been with a boy. But just say I would have been like, girls, girls, girls. They would have been like, wait, how? Wait a minute, you've never been with a girl. What are you saying? And it's like, so it's okay for you to do it, but not, no. So friends, I just want to give you a quick reminder to click the link down below to come and take part in Lelo's virtual Pride and share your stories, and we can all come together and celebrate. Thank you so much, Lelo. You guys are amazing. They're an amazing brand. I'd highly recommend you check them out. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's any other kind of LGBTQ plus videos you'd like me to make, or any topics you'd like me to touch on down below, because I love making this content. And yeah, I'm very passionate about it. So I hope you enjoyed. I love you all so much, and I cannot wait to see you all in my next video.